Hi, this is Kelsey, or Easy Hoon, whatever you prefer to call me. Notice that there's some very confusing roster swaps and movements going on in China right now, kind of in the bottom half of the LPL, featuring Starhorn Royal Club, now Royal Never Give Up, sort of King, GAMT, VG Gaming Potential, or Unlimited Potential. I wanted to explain kind of what's happening there both on a surface level, because that's confusing enough, and then add, I guess, some of the context or some of the rumors or some of the hearsay. If there is a rumor, this will definitely be flashing on the screen, or just be on the screen so that people know it's not 100% factual. I don't want to confuse things by just spreading misinformation without a subclause. I'm mostly here to make things easier to understand. That's my objective, not to make things more convoluted. And especially since I much more usually handle the game side, but I felt like this particular situation should have some commentary, should have some clarification to it. So I really wanted to make sure that there was something explaining from the beginning sort of what started with what happened to where we are now and how the layout looks. To start, we have the relegation of Starhorn Royal Club. There's a lot of stuff that happened leading up to this. First of all, I wanted to make a very, very clear claim that I don't believe that Starhorn Royal Club, this iteration of Starhorn Royal Club we saw with Cola, Insec, Korn, Name, and Zero, proved that they didn't deserve to be in LPL. I would say rather they didn't get a chance at all. For the first 8 weeks of the split, they were playing with HYY or Way. HYY left the house because he was like so dejected, and the team really didn't have good synergy or couldn't make things work with them. HYY, to be clear, wasn't even an AD carry main. He was actually a solo queue player who mained mid. So they picked him up because he had like a high mechanical skill, and they figured they could make something work. It didn't work out. They picked up Wei also when that wasn't working out. He didn't have good synergy with Zero, and he was like a Callista only player. So you see how there are a lot of problems with those AD carries. When they finally were allowed to play Name, like Zero said, okay, we have a good AD carry. The first week they play Name, Cola doesn't really want to play because just like the losses and the fact that they're now in the bottom four, like primed for having to play the relegation tournament, has really gotten to him. So they sub in Ackerman. And then this is the week where they win like 3 out of their 4 games, so things are looking a little bit better for them. Week 10, they have to face WE and Edward Gaming. Unfortunately, they lose 2-0 to WE. They have Cola back in, so this is like, to be fair, week 10 is the only week where they have their full roster, okay? So that's the first thing to clarify. And they go 0-2 to EDG and 0-2 to WE. WE, there were a lot of problems going on that you could see. Like, they almost won both of those games, but ended up throwing in situations. Korn played really well. You could see promise in this roster, even though it wasn't going anywhere. Immediately afterwards, they go to Demacia Cup. Insec jumps off of the second-story building and breaks his leg. Now we get to the point where we're more in rumor territory. According to a lot of accounts right now, this is where a lot of the team loses their motivation. They don't really want to play as much. They're not practicing or scrimming nearly as much. They're playing other games. They're streaming more often. So my response to this is, okay, you're nearly relegated. You're never allowed to play with your full roster, ever, pretty much, except for 1 week of LPL. And you're supposed to be extremely motivated, right? So that's already out of the window. Like, I can empathize with, okay, they really got the short end of the stick. There's not much they can do because they have to face a lot of really strong teams, and they're just starting to get the synergy with their roster. And there were games where Name and Zero played really well. Like, they took a game off IG. IG was probably trolling a little bit, trying to get a lower seed, but like, into consideration, they had some really crazy games. And Zero constantly was like hard carrying, going to a bunch of different lanes. So there were moments when this roster actually looked really good. Now, if they didn't practice, like, because they got in a really bad situation, I I have a lot of problem faulting them. Ideally, like, it's their job, they should be practicing, they should be taking it seriously. There's not much they can do. And of course, the other rumor is that when they got to relegation, when they had to play the promotion tournament, they were feeling really cocky. They didn't think they could possibly lose to Gamtee because they were one of only 3 teams that never ever lost to Gamtee, right? And then they get 3-0'd in the promotion, so it was really unexpected. They definitely went in over cocky, but does that mean that this roster, like, doesn't deserve to ever be an LPL? I think it does, honestly. I don't think it says that this roster should never ever be an LPL, doesn't have a chance. I think that they actually have the potential to be like a top 6 LPL team. But it depends on, again, their motivation now going forward. So whether the debate is they deserve to be an LPL, they deserve to be an LSPL, that's fair. They still, like, the organization still has the power to purchase a spot. Like, if a spot is up for grabs, they still have that power. Royal Never Give Up is announced. And here we're going to look at what the announcement looks like, what the team said. So on the Royal Club Weibo, which is now Royal Never Give Up, and Starhorn Royal Club will be the teams for there. They said that they purchased the spot from Vici Gaming Potential. So, Vici Gaming Potential was a team that qualified to LPL from the LSPL. The way they got there is that the top 2 teams from LSPL auto-qualified. So, the number 1 team was Xiaogu, and the number 2 team was Vici Gaming Potential. Vici Gaming Potential, by the exclusive ownership clause in the Lay's contract, has to sell their second LPL team because they aren't allowed to own both Vici Gaming and Vici Gaming Potential if they're both an LPL. You're allowed to own 1 LPL team and 1 LSPL team, but you can't own 2 in both leagues. So Vici Gaming Potential would have to sell their spot and their roster. Anyway, Starhorn Royal Club goes ahead and buys it, and they say, okay, this is our spot now, but they let the players under a new owner, right, supposedly a new owner, go ahead and buy another spot. And this is where it starts to get even more confusing. So there are no rosters announced yet until this point. Vici Gaming Potential becomes Unlimited Potential. And this is where we actually get a roster finally, okay? So Vici Gaming Potential, supposedly by what was said in the announcement, was able to purchase another LPL spot, okay? So the players under Vici Gaming Potential and the new owner purchases another LPL spot from Gamtee. Royal Never Give Up announcement, first of all. I'm using the Score assets because I work for the Score. It's a great website. We have all of this news documented. This has information on the website where they explain that Royal Never Give Up wanted another chance. They felt that a lot of what happened was really circumstantial. They'll eventually announce both the Royal Never Give Up and the Starhorn Royal Club roster. Let's see. The next thing that happened is that under Unlimited Potential is announced, right? They're going to play an LPL. Their top laner Long, their jungle Aimee, their mid Zhao, and their AD carry Sketch, and support Heart and Punished was Apollo, who is the main mid for their 2015 LPL Spring roster. So they do have a new mid laner, but that's pretty much the only change. So the Vici Gaming Potential players who won their spot in the LPL through LSPL are still able to play in LPL under the Unlimited Potential banner, the Unlimited Potential team. They acquired the Gamtee spot and rebranded it to Unlimited Potential. So now this is where we get into territory that's a bit more how do we put this? Territory that will probably bother people a little bit more, right? You're suddenly screwing over perhaps the Gamtee team, who rightfully qualified back into LPL after, again, the relegation match against our home club. But the thing is that they were still a bottom tier LPL team. The roster got purchased by this other bottom tier LPL team. Gamtee was showing some improvements. They were still extremely inconsistent, but in another split of LPL, they probably still would have placed bottom tier, like, honest to goodness. And that sucks, and that's kind of a rude thing to say, but I mean, that's the reality, and if someone else with the money buys the spot, like, that's perfectly legal. They're allowed to do that. It should be noted also that all of the It should be noted also that all of the GAMT players, at least in some capacity, get to keep their job because they get bought up either as subs or actual players of other LPL teams or LSPL teams. This new team, Vici Gaming Potential, that qualified for LPL, especially Aimee, who's now qualified 2 splits in a row for LPL on 2 different teams, finally gets a chance to play. The thing about this roster that I like is that they are carried sort of by their Korean AD carry and their jungler. Those are going to be your primary carry roles. Lin can serve as a carry. I still don't think this team will place like extremely high, but it's exciting to finally see some of these players in LPL. Now finally we get to see the King and Royal Never Give Up rosters, and this is where King enters the fray, okay? Royal Club Weibo releases an announcement with the listed roster for Royal Never Give Up and says that they are transferring all of the previous Starhorn Royal Club roster to King. So they are effectively acquiring the King roster and giving the Royal Never Give Up roster to, not really mentioned, but it's kind of glossed over, but it seems that both King and Royal Never Give Up acquired members from the previous GAMT lineup. So here we're going to see Cola, Insec, Korn, Name, and Zero be the main lineup for King. These Hui and Ao and Syncdream are listed as subs on the announcement. When I made this news for the score, it was actually listed below everything as the subs, but since the Royal roster was listed with everyone in the same position first, I decided to do that for the purpose of making the formatting the same. King will effectively have the Starhorn Royal Club roster that was supposed to be playing during the last split, like the roster that they wanted. So this will be no excuses. The entire split the team gets to play. In the Royal Club statement, they said that they felt the roster deserved another chance because when they had fans show up at the end and like give them a lot of encouragement, everyone was motivated again. They get to try again. Everyone's going to go out guns blazing. This is the story that they're spinning here. Now the King roster is, I say King because it's mostly King members, but it's now the Royal Never Give Up lineup, so they switched. The Royal Never Give Up lineup has Let Me, the top laner from GAMT. They have Godlike, the top laner from Starhorn Royal Club, who was a sub, and Sky, the top laner from King. Let Me should be the starting top laner. I believe that's going to be the case. I think he's the best choice. Sky had champion pool issues. Godlike wasn't really practicing. Let Me had a bunch of inconsistencies, but he showed like a lot of flexibility, a lot of promise as a top laner. So I think that like having him continue to play as the starting top laner of these three is the best option. MLXG, the jungler from King, who I think was extremely overrated, but he still had a lot of, he was like the main shot caller of the team. He played Vi, he played Rek'Saiver really well. Then you have Xiaohu, who was the main mid laner from GAMT. I actually think Assassin was better overall. This is a bit of a controversial opinion. But Xiaohu showed he plays like a ridiculous amount of champions. He's extremely gifted. He's extremely young too. Criticize them for that. But No Heart, who is the King AD carry, also known as Wushin, and Lei, who is the bot. So the bottom line of King I actually think is really good as a whole. So I wouldn't advise breaking up that bottom lane, even though I think Tail is actually like a really solid AD carry, and there were moments where he was better than Wushin. But I do think overall, like having that bottom lane as a whole is really good if they can play better than they were. So that's the Royal Never Give Up lineup. So the question now becomes what happens to some of the big players on GAMT and King that aren't mentioned. Like they don't mention Assassin and they don't mention Tail. It's speculated that Assassin and Tail will end up on the Starhorn Royal Club LSPL team with the ex-GAMT coach, who I actually rate really highly, Faye. So it's really sad to see him not get an LPL team to coach, because I think he's like could be one of the great coaches in LPL, since considering what he's managed to do with King while he coached them during the offseason and made them like a top 2 offseason team, and what he managed to do with GAMT, which was like, even though they were inconsistent and like really green players, they could still take games off top LPL teams. The question now becomes, why would King and Royal Never Give Up switch? Why would the players from the King lineup go to Royal Never Give Up, and why would the players from Royal Never Give Up go to King? Right? I guess it's not Royal Never Give Up. Starhorn Royal Club from last play. very confusing, but why would that happen? Why would they make this decision? Very, very shark-infested waters here, okay? So the speculation is that the owner of Starhorn Royal Club, or the Royal Club brand, actually bought all of these teams. So he's actually the de facto, because you know you have de jure from your history class, if you can remember. De jure is like the ruler who sits and is supposedly the ruler, whereas the de facto ruler is the one who is actually ruling, like, behind the scenes. So he's going to be the de facto owner, and the de jure owner is going to be like whoever is at the top of these clubs. And so why the rosters would swap in that case is because if they want to take the main lineup for the Royal brand, which is going to be Urkola, Insect, Korn, Name, Zero, you're going to put it in the roster that has the best chance of making Worlds. Currently, of these rosters, the one with the most circuit points is the King one, okay? So they have 50. In the grand scheme of things, 50 circuit points is not a lot. First of all, Edward Gaming already has 300. LGD already has 200. IG already has 100. Snake already has 80. And then from there, like, all the other quarterfinalist teams have 50. And then I think it's like 20 for the relegated teams that made it back into LPL. I believe like 100 points will be added to each of these. It's not exactly the same, but there are definitely more points for placing in the summer split. So in the grand scheme of things, 50 is not a lot. I guess every little bit helps, and that's why they did swap the rosters. But yeah, it sucks for the King players who don't get it, but my perspective, if I were the Royal owner, I would want the roster that I see as having the biggest upside, the biggest chance of actually going to Worlds overall and doing well in the summer split. I would put them on the team with the most circuit points. And I do agree that the Royal roster, though they had like a really, really poor showing, overall they're gonna be your most experienced and your most talented lineup. So it's just a business decision ultimately at that point. No, so that's the rumor there, that they actually bought all those teams. Of course, the other rumor is that they didn't actually buy the Vici Gaming roster, and that was actually, like, Vici Gaming still owns that, right? The best of luck, and I hope to see them do well in LPL. I think it'll be really exciting. Like, I'm actually really excited to see how King looks, because I think Xiaohu and Assassin won't be enough of a noticeable difference. I think they're very similar in skill, very similar in terms of being able to hard carry their team. Xiaohu is a little bit more daring than Assassin, I would say, which can backfire more or also like lead to more wins, so it's like roughly similar. I think Let Me will be a more reliable top for that team, so you'll see more flexibility coming out of that. I think Sky was a big problem because he used to be a big carry for them, but since he had such big champion pool issues going into the LPL season, they didn't really end up doing very well. And I think Xiaohu actually will give them more initiative, because you saw King, like, last year really, really passively losing. I think I hope Royal are more motivated now, so the King lineup with Name. Here Name is much more motivated at the very least. I'm not sure about the rest of the lineup. I think the Unlimited Potential roster, since like it has pretty much no change at all except for the mid laner, I think the mid lane change is probably necessary. Probably won't do a whole lot, but I am still excited to see Aimee, because I think Aimee will still show that he's like a very, very solid jungler. He did well against Swift on Xiaogu in LSPL, so he's not just facing like amateur junglers, he's facing Swift, who was the touted as like the third best jungler in the world last year. So I think it'll be really interesting to see both him and Aimee in LPL now. Like, the jungle talent is going to be really insane. This split, like, even more so than last split. The Starhorn Royal Club LSPL team, we don't really know much about yet. Like I said, it's speculated that they'll have the ex-Gamsey coach, Assassin, and Tail. If they do have those three, then I will be very shocked if they don't end up making it back into LPL. I think that's a really, really solid, like, really solid bones for that team. This is it. We'll probably talk about it and our thoughts, and you'll get to hear some of their opinions on China Talk on Monday. So, thanks for watching.